Hello, I hope you're doing well today. I've read through your draft and I wanted to take a few minutes and talk to you about some issues. In front of me here, you're going to see a sample paper, and I want to help you understand a little bit better the focus that you need to take. Now, obviously, we're looking for APA style, and this paper is a clear example of that structure. So make sure that you're double checking your APA style. This gives you all of the information you need on how to work on that. But I'm more concerned about content right now. I hope that you're working toward making sure your paper is clear, that you have an argumentative structure, and that you're integrating sources instead of just popping them in. Um, Synthesis is really important. Also, you want to remember in APA style that you need an abstract. So take some time and read through this and understand that the abstract should summarize for the reader what your paper is doing. So let's look at this sample paper. It's Can medication cure obesity in children? So the essay is about the ways in which medication possibly could, but also argues for different issues. So notice the introduction here. In March 2004, U.S. Surgeon General Richard Carman called attention to a health problem in the United States that, until recently, has been overlooked: childhood obesity. Now, what you're seeing here in this introduction is setting context for your argument. Before this writer even goes into her argument, she makes sure that she sets context. Carman said that the astounding 15% childhood obesity rate constitutes an epidemic. Since the early 1980s, that rate has doubled in children and tripled in adolescents. Now, I want to bring your attention to something at this point. Here in APA style, this student did not do something that she should have done, which was put a page number. So please remember that when you're doing APA style, that you're putting in proper page numbers. We also see here, though, that one thing the student does do, which can happen in APA style, is that she gives us a footnote. Now, more than 9 million children are classified as obese. By doing this, instead of taking up room in the paper to talk about that, she's able to put at the end in a footer how obesity is measured. We don't need that in the body of the paper because we don't want that to get in the way of the time that you're spending on the argument. We just need it as a definition at the bottom. So notice the argument of a thesis right here. Understanding the limitations of medical treatments for children highlights the complexity of adult obesity problem in the United States and underscores the need for physicians, advocacy groups, and policymakers to search for other options. So why is this an argument? Well, it's debatable. I could look at this and say, I don't agree with you. But then this student moves in and begins discussing, giving us clear discussions with clear citations that are integrated. Notice in this particular paragraph, obesity can be a devastating problem from both an individual and societal perspective. Obesity puts children at risk for a number of medical conditions, including type 2 diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, and orthopedic problems. And then we have a citation, a clear citation. The author, date, page numbers. Researchers Hoppin and Travers, 2004, notice date and authors are never separated, have noted that obesity is often associated with psychological issues such as depression, anxiety, and binge eating. And we have a clue that there's a table at the end of the text. Again, this student doesn't put the table in the text, though you could. She chooses not to. Instead, she uses signal phrases and then enters the table here, which we know we can look at the end of the paper. Then we also have another integration. Obesity also poses serious problems for society struggling to cope with rising health costs. And then she discusses the cost. So we have the argument, okay, and context for it, setting up the source that proves this, giving the source, quoting it, and citing it correctly, and then moving on with analysis and discussion. This is a crucial way to make sure that you're not just dropping quotes into your paper. Again, we see this here. The widening scope of the obesity problem has prompted medical professionals to rethink old conceptions of the disorder and its causes. Again, an argument, a sub-argument to the main argument, and then a buttress backing up the information, as researchers Jan Janovisky, obviously two people with the same last name, and the date have explained. Obesity was once considered either a moral failing or evidence of underlying psychopath, psychopathology. So a mental issue or failing moral convictions. So, but we know that that's not true anymore, that there are medical reasons for this. There are biomedical rather than moral conditions that influence obesity. So that then moves us into another discussion. All of this keeping in mind the original main idea. Now notice in this paragraph, I want you to just look at how this paragraph is working. There's not just a citation at the end. Instead, the author integrates ideas within. We have what's called the braiding technique instead of dropping quotes in. The student also talks about then what are the drugs that can help with obesity, and also the proof that those drugs work, okay? So this is crucial again because the author is not just throwing information in. Here's the table that we talked about, okay? Here's more information. A note that possibly deviates a little bit from the discussion, but gives us some information on the source. So as readers, if we want to follow this information, we can. It's crucial that you work to make sure your readers know what you're talking about, all right? So again, as we scroll through this paper, we notice that the table is put in a very good place. The author is referring to the table. The author braids in citations as opposed to just dropping them in. The author makes arguments. So notice here where the author interprets information, okay? But then as we move to a conclusion, the tone becomes more objective, okay? And gives us another general discussion, which helps readers see your argument more clearly because you're looking at different sides as opposed to being dogmatic on one side and rejecting other issues. And then, of course, we have our references. Notice how they're formatted. Alphabetical order. There's nothing here that there's no numbers, okay? There's no bullets. This is crucial. So this is just a sample paper as you are going through your work and revising your paper. I want you to pay attention to what this paper does. Now your paper is longer, okay? But it needs to do the same types of things. We need to braid in ideas instead of dropping in support. Make sure that you're setting context, introducing sources, paraphrasing and or quoting sources, citing whether you paraphrase, quote, or summarize, analyzing those sources, interpreting them in terms of your argument, and then projecting forward into the next point. Use signal phrases to key us in when you're moving between points. This is crucial. You don't just want to drop information in, okay? You are in charge. You are the moderator. You have to help the reader understand and flow through your argument carefully. If you're not doing that and you're leaving the information up to your reader to interpret, then you're not in control of your essay. If you're not in control of your essay, you're not successful in writing it. So take the time to work on braiding all of this information in together. Take the time to create strong introduction that grabs the reader's attention, pulls the reader in, keeps the reader interested, and a conclusion that leaves the reader wanting more information. Not that you haven't answered questions, but that leaves the reader interested in your topic. I trust that you are able to do this, and I look forward to reading your final paper. If you have questions throughout, please let me know, and I'll be certain to answer your questions. Okay? Thanks so much for your essay. I'm gonna post this video but you'll also see a post of the sample. Have a great day.